Greetings, brethren. It is I, the Donkey, and we are once again back with Donkey versus Beer. Now, lately I've had a lot of strange foreign beers and craft beers, and a lot of them were kind of bad. So, I thought I would go with something a bit more normal, for myself at least. For you, I'm sure it's not necessarily normal unless I don't know, you live in Germany or have been in Germany before. Because today we are going to have Radeberger Pilsner. Now, why is this something more normal? Because this is one of the more standard beers or standard Pilsners that you can get in a pretty big radius around where it originates, which is Saxony. They have been going since 1872, so it is a brewery with tradition. I'm not sure if they're still privately owned or if they were bought by anyone, because there are quite a few breweries at this point that have been bought by the big breweries, you know, Anheuser-Busch and Carlsberg and a few others that keep buying up breweries. So I don't know about that. Anyway, but this is a Pilsner, and it is one that you can definitely get in a lot of, especially, this is one of those restaurant beers. So there are certain types of beers that you are very likely to see when you go to a German restaurant. You're likely to see them on the menu, as well as locals. So pretty much every restaurant will have a local beer at least. Sometimes they'll have contracts with local breweries, so they'll only have their brand's beers, and then, you know, ones from further away. Another one like Radeberger that pops up a lot in restaurants is Bitburger and Warsteiner, which I will also have on the channel at some point. And they are what I would call these sort of standard Pilsners. They're not really very... They're not standard because of the taste or anything. It's just, for me, that's what I associate with a standard Pilsner, because they're just so widely available. And you see them on menus so often. Beck's, by the way, is not popular in the same way. You don't see Beck's on restaurant menus a lot, because it is seen as a bit of a more common beer. So restaurants kind of tend to go for the one step up, which is this sort of stuff, like Radeberger, Warsteiner, and so on and so forth. Let's have that magical pour. That actually does smell good. So, what was I going to say? Oh yeah, I'm sure there will be once again be people complaining that I do not have a Pilsner glass. I just don't own a Pilsner glass. I find them kind of annoying to have at home because you have to be very careful with them. They're, if you don't know what they are, they're the ones that they kind of look like a wine glass but really tall, and sort of, you know, so they have a stick at the bottom and a stand, and I just find that to be far too fragile for home use, personally. I'm sure other people disagree with that and find it fine. For me, it's not the best. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you pour a Pilsner in a Stein. I'm actually quite proud of this one. I still know how to do that. So yeah, let's have a go at Radeberger Pilsner. Cheers. Yep, this is sort of what I associate as the sort of really hearty, standard German Pilsner. Now, obviously, there are still very much differences between these different brands, even the ones that I mentioned, that the sort of restaurant Pilsners. But they have certain characteristics that they all share, and that is, and those characteristics are slightly different from the Bohemian Pilsners. Bohemia, I mentioned this before, is today called the Czech Republic, or that part of the Czech Republic, the Bohemia, that used to be a part of Germany a long time ago, and that's where Pilsners originated, in the town of Pilsen. And they are slightly different because they are very much still on their tradition in that area. So their Pilsners are kind of what they always used to be. And in Germany, what is now Germany, they've kind of developed a little bit into their own thing. And so a Bohemian Pilsner is quite bitter. And it's very bitter, and it lingers a lot. It has certain similarities to an IPA in that, but it doesn't have that same sort of citrusy weirdness, and the bitterness isn't as overpowering, and it doesn't linger quite as long. But it's quite aggressive. These sort of restaurant German Pilsners tend to not do that as much, and they tend to be a lot more savory than you would expect from a much more traditional Bohemian Pilsner. So, and that is also part of what makes them good restaurant Pilsners, because it just makes them fit really well with hearty German restaurant food. That's why you'll get them in those kind of places. Because this is going to be ideal if you have some, hearty German food with potatoes and your meats, and maybe your cabbage or your sauerkraut or whatever, then you do want a beer that is also quite savory. The bitterness is welcome, of course, but you don't want that to be too overpowering, and you don't want anything you don't want too much of a sour note. Definitely no sweetness, because I personally at least think that sweetness makes it much harder to pair beers with food, unless the food is, junk food. So yeah, I forgot what I was gonna say, but yeah. Anyway, so quite savory, quite bitter as well, but oh so good with food, and yeah, that's really all there is to it. It's a simple beer, very very flavorful beer. Probably if you're used to more sort of North American commercial beers, this will be a culture shock to you, because there is a lot there. Similar to an IPA, but not as aggressive and not as overbearing, I would say. But yeah, still quite different, and also a lot more fizzy. That's, as you saw with the Crown, there's just a lot of carburation there. Rating wise, see, I don't want to rate these too highly. But I also don't want to give them too few points, because that's unfair as well, because they are actually quite good. I think I'm going to go for a 6.5 out of 10. It is definitely a beer worth drinking. And the same, I will have a separate episode, and they are a little different each. But Bitburger and Warsteiner, I would put in the same category as this. Also maybe Hasseröder. There's a few of these kind of, that I would consider restaurant Pilsners, that are similar but legally distinct, and they have their own little quirks. But all of them, I think, are above average beers that are really, really good drinking beers as well. And they go fantastically with food. So especially especially once it goes toward the fall season and you're eating stews and heartier meals, this is the kind of beer that you want with it, because it just goes with it so well. And obviously the restaurateurs across Germany, they know that, and that's why these kind of beers are always on the menu, besides the locals, of course, because everybody should support their locals. It's just how things should go. All right, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you have a lovely evening. Please join me again on another day for another beer, and yeah, we'll see what else we have. can't be that many left, right? Take care, guys.